Hi everybody. I'm back with another episode for Doula School for you all, and today we're going to talk about work-life balance as a doula. We're going to cover a few different topics. Number one, how do you do it? Number two, can you work another job and be a doula? And number three, how do you handle childcare if you have kids? So I think the first thing that I want to acknowledge is that work-life balance is a little bit elusive. I think we look around in this world of, Facebook and Instagram at everyone's perfect pics and perfect happiness, and we get this idea that other people have got it together and we don't. And I'm here to say that's just not true, and you know it. You know that no one has it perfectly together and has it all figured out. So first, acknowledge that, and that we're all doing the best we can. The second thing is that some of us have maybe had a little bit more time to sort it out. My kids are older, and I remember when they were little and just feeling kind of like a frantic mess all the time about trying to manage everything. And yet, when I look back, I think that other people sometimes looked at me and thought I had it together, even though it really felt quite stressful. And the other thing too is that sometimes we've just had a little bit more time to come up with some creative solutions and figure out ways to help ourselves and our families to manage better. So I wanted to talk about a lot of those things. So first of all, one of the questions that I get asked a lot is, can you have a job and be a doula at the same time? And of course you can. ... depending on a few factors and variables. So for me, I actually spent my first 5 years, I was still in corporate when I started working as a doula. I took a few clients per year, and I taught childbirth education classes also, and worked a full-time job with a commute, an hour away from my house. So when I look back, sometimes I think, how did I do that? But I did it, bottom line. And I did it with a few different sort of contingency plans. So number one, you can have a job as long as the job that you have isn't super duper mission critical, meaning you can skip a day once in a while, you can show up late, you can make up hours another time. If you have that kind of job, it's going to be a lot easier to coordinate that kind of job and working as a doula. I will tell you, I think one time I went about 18 months and it didn't affect one single work day. When you think about how many hours there are in a week, even if you're working 40 hours or even let's say 50 hours, there's still way more hours that you're not working. So that means hours that you can, that you would normally be sleeping, or that you would be having your off time. And a lot of time labors happen through the night. So if you have a day job, a lot of those labors might happen through the night. Now, did I ever, go to work with very little sleep? Of course. Did I ever show up a couple of hours late and stay a couple of hours late? Of course. So you've got to be able to work around some things like that. But now we're not talking about having a full-time job and a full-time doula caseload. I mean, if you had a full-time doula caseload, you wouldn't need your full-time job. So what I'm talking about is managing where maybe you're doing a birth a month or a birth every other month and you've got a full-time job. That works for sure. If you're talking about part-time job and part-time doula work, again, it's going to be dependent on your work situation and the flexibility. Maybe you have a flexible boss that you can chat with, and maybe you've got a colleague that you work off hours from them and that they're willing to come in and take over for you if you get called to a birth. So for sure you can have a job and work as a doula, but number one, and this is always in every single situation, you have to have a really good backup. If ever there's a situation, whether it's work related or otherwise, that you can't attend your client, of course you need to have someone else that you can send. The other thing to consider is, if you're going to do part-time doula work and you've got a lot of other responsibilities, is why not consider partnering with another doula? And then maybe you guys can share on-call and off-call time, but the clients always know what's going on and they're really aware of how this is going to work, and that you may not be there, but that there's someone else that they've gotten to know just the same amount and that they've chosen. I actually worked like that for several years when I was a newer doula and my kids were younger. I actually had another doula partner, and we had 7 kids between us, and we shared 1 week on call and 1 week off call. Now, really it was sort of primary doula for 1 week and then secondary doula. But it very rarely happened that two clients went into labor at the same time. So we both had other birth related work that we did. I taught childbirth classes and did the odd postpartum work, but we took about 4 clients between the two of us per month. So basically we ended up at about 2 births each per month, and that worked really well, and we did that for many years. So of course there's lots of financial considerations and how to make that work, and maybe we'll talk about that in another episode, but that's a legitimate option as well, especially if you do a job where maybe you can't be replaced easily. For example, maybe you're a massage therapist, or you're a chiropractor, or a naturopath, or you have another discipline where you have a client caseload that are coming to see you. That is the perfect scenario to be able to partner with someone else. The clients are choosing both of you together. They know they're going to get one of you. That is a fantastic solution for how to manage doing other things. Now, in terms of managing your children and your family life, how do you drop everything you're doing with no notice or very little notice, and your family is able to run successfully without you? And there is no one simple solution or easy solution for how to make that work. Number one is you need to have a family situation where everyone gets used to you having to leave. So that's an important factor when it comes to doula work, of course. Is your kids, if you've got kids, they need to understand that, you know, you're going to help another family, and we can teach our kids to appreciate that that's a really important job, and that it's really important that you're there for your clients. So once you've got that down pat, then it's really about who takes care of your kids. Maybe you have a partner, maybe you don't. Maybe you have a lot of family support, maybe you don't. I think this is a good time to rally some family support and ask for some help once in a while. Again, depending on how much support you have is going to depend on how many births you can take per month and how often you can rely on those people to help you out. The other thing that I did for many years, when I'd probably exhausted all of my friend and family support after, the first decade of doula work, is I hired an on-call babysitter. So this was a mature person who could drive my kids to soccer if that's what was needed, and who didn't necessarily need a full-time or even part-time job commitment, but who was, partially retired and loved working with kids and had experience working with kids and got to know my family. I paid a weekly fee for them to just be available. And then when I needed them, then I paid an hourly rate. So of course my hourly rate was a little higher than sort of hiring your average babysitter or nanny, but it was really worthwhile for me because of course I didn't need her all that often at 3 o'clock in the morning. But when I did, she knew when my clients were due, and this was the expectation. And I got her a bouquet of flowers that night when I woke her up at 3 o'clock in the morning, because I worked as a doula with 3 young kids and with a partner who worked away a lot of the time. So I was actually really kind of a single mom half the month when my kids were younger. And this on-call babysitter was the perfect solution for me. So listen, where there is a will, there is a way. And if you've got a challenge, I promise you there is a solution. If this job means a lot to you and it's really what you want to do, then do it. But all that being said, just remember that work-life balance is something that we work at. It's not something that we perfect and that we'll ever feel is completely perfect. So make sure that you take time for yourself and do the self-care that's important. I think we'll do another episode on that too. But basically everything is figure-outable, as one of my favorite people, Marie Forleo, always says. So thank you guys for listening, and if you've got a unique challenge or situation, feel free to post it in the comments. I'd be happy to comment, and I'm sure your doula colleagues will too. See you next time.